Doki, aka Selene, has put out sort of a large tweet about this, and maybe I'll blow this up just a little bit more. I don't know how readable this is to you guys, but secretly a dinosaur, love that. She put out this tweet, and I'm not going to read the entire thing out, but I will put it up all on screen and read a few key portions that I think are important, namely that she specifies that she was really ready to move on and did not really want to look at this and hasn't been looking at this in the past week or so, but basically Nijisanji can't just shut the fuck up and be quiet and deal with it, and that she obviously, for obvious reasons, does not want to go into this again. And I also want to state very clearly that I think that Selene has handled this, Doki has handled this with a lot of grace, because not once in this entire thing has she mentioned another VTuber at the agency, nor has she said that harassment came from other VTubers. Although most in the community are reading between the lines and assuming that, she never once said that harassment came from other talents. And she has done her utmost best to not throw any single person under the bus. And yet, Nijisanji keeps just sort of putting those words out there, which is, again, extremely stupid. But she's been a class act in this whole thing. One of the main sticking points that came up in the previous stream by Nijisanji and the three livers was that evidently she had recorded a conversation between her and Vox Akuma, and he viewed that as a personal betrayal, which is understandable. It is somewhat, it's obviously somewhat an invasion of privacy if you don't know that you're being recorded. Legally speaking, there's nothing illegal about it because she was recording and she lives in a one-party consent country. So it's not illegal, but I can understand why people were feeling like it was a little bit unethical. And the counterpoint to that is if you're feeling in a terrible headspace and you're feeling like there's corporate harassment, and that you need to be gathering a case, recording things is kind of like, it's already gotten to a bad point if you're recording things. But with this statement that she puts out, she clarifies that regarding the recording, this was not intended to be anything other than a distribution test for planning of a collaborative event between two people, which happened to be left over from a test recording. I never recorded any other conversations with anyone else. It was never shown anywhere, even in a legal setting, and there are no other records. However, I regret that it was mentioned, and I'm sorry to all the parties affected in the misunderstanding for this. Which, so if we're going by her claims, this is just part of the normal process of practicing and prepping your tech. And that, you know, that was totally a normal thing to have done and had. And I have tons and tons and tons of 2-minute clips of myself doing audio testing or records with myself and other people when we are setting up for collaborations or events. Totally unsurprising. So once again, coming out a total winner here and really not looking like the picture that was painted by the corporate announcement. Part 2 of that tweet, she talks some more about how the document was only given to her lawyers and was only intended to be submitted to Nijisanji's lawyers, and that it was not a formal legal filing or anything like that, just furthering the point that it should not have been shared with anyone else in the company. And the fact that several of the streamers are saying outright that they heavily reviewed the documents is further problematic, but we already knew that. Interestingly, she said that only 2 hours after they sent this document to Nijisanji, 2 hours later is when they terminated her, which that's, I'm fairly certain that is a violation of Japanese labor law, almost certainly a violation of Canadian labor law. Kind of any way you cut it, immediate termination without notice when all that you're doing is filing some statements about internal harassment that you've been receiving and bad working conditions is a huge no-no. And I'm sure that that interaction is documented. The timing is obviously going to be documented because they'll have timestamps of when they sent those records. So once again, further terrible look and further showing that she had no idea that the termination was coming, because she had said that she was going to amicably part ways with Nijisanji privately several days before and sent these documents. Some further notes that all of the communication was between the lawyers in Japanese, which obviously makes things complicated because things aren't directly coming out of her mouth. They're going to her mouth, to a lawyer, to another language, to another lawyer, to another person. But there is some degree of working with an international company that you just can't get anything past that. A little bit more about that, was trying to move on, and it was very unfortunate. She further goes on to say that she's not perfect. She certainly has faults, and is describing some of the difficult things that had gone on between her and other parties. But a particularly tragic angle to all of this that we didn't know is, even though we knew in the first incident that she had talked about that the reason for her hospitalization was an attempt on her own life at that time back in December, she says here that, and she hadn't even told her parents this, but it was actually a second attempt that she had made that sent her to the hospital, and the first attempt nobody had found out about, which is truly awful. And I'm glad that she seems to be in a better headspace and is getting help, because it's, I mean, this whole situation is absolutely tragic, and to be put into a position to feel that this is your only escape is heartbreaking to anyone. And the further digging this up and continuing this bullshit publicly is such an awful thing that Nijisanji is doing. And it's truly horrendous when any of this should have been behind closed doors. And knowing that they're making these statements out here in ways to try and discredit her and make her look bad is so much worse when you include the personal mental health angle on this aspect. And it's just awful. It's just awful. The final last one is just basically her reiterating once again that she is a class act and doesn't want anyone to be harassed over it. And unlike some of the other people, she hasn't named a single name to be harassing. So just everything about this is really heartbreaking. And it's everything about it, everything that comes out just paints her in a better light and the corporation in a worse light. And it is the most confusing. It is the most confusing situation I've ever seen from a PR standpoint. And I think for her, she would wish that it would just completely go away. But if lawsuits come out of this, and I feel certain that they are going to, I hope she cleans them the fuck out. Like, she deserves it, and it's awful. On the topic of cleaning people out and monetary compensation, it also came to my attention that, as we've discussed, the management seems very amateur, untrained, unproficient, and stubborn. All of those things, great things that you want to see in management. And it turns out that at this very moment, to this day, there is still a posted job listing on Nijisanji for their VTuber English supervision part-time job. And I've highlighted a few segments here. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger again. This is directly Google translated from the website. I've also run it through DeepL, and it was basically the same. Business content. Currently, you will be responsible for checking the consistency of video content voice and goods, etc., is a quality control work for Nijisanji's English content before its release, aka exactly what precipitated this entire situation over the past year and longer, being that Selene was constantly having trouble getting things authorized and permissions given, and that management was dragging its heels and was miserable to work with and very difficult. I didn't highlight it here, but one of the things says a native Japanese speaker and an English speaker with daily conversational level, which daily conversational English is fine, perhaps, for somebody who is working in the English side of things, but I don't think that it's fine for a management and permission go-between, and it's just terrible. You should be absolutely fluent in English when it is your job to communicate with the English talents on complicated business relationships. And if you just think about it in reverse, they obviously wouldn't accept somebody who has basically standard conversational Japanese and no better. So baffling. But when we get to the bottom line, hourly wage, 1,113 yen. For those of you who don't know the yen conversion rate, currently in USD, that's about $7.50, give or take. I didn't use a calculator, but having recently been to Japan, I know that conversion pretty well. That's certainly below minimum wage in my state, and it's about our national minimum wage, which is woefully out of date for the modern era, and is the same national minimum wage that we had probably 15 years ago or more. We've been talking about raising the national minimum wage for ages. So further, employment period updated every 3 months, working hours, yada, yada, that's fine. Looking for 20 hours or more per week. So they aren't even looking for a full-time recruitment. And the next line is, it's preferable that you can come in 3 or more days a week, and, negotiable on weekends, which, again, whatever. But again, 3 days a week when you're dealing with talents. And there's also been reports that talents are being managed with a 5-to-1 or more ratio of talents to managers. So yeah, that's wild, but it gets better because I left the last section for the best section for last. I left the last section for last. Yeah, classic. Other conditions. Students who are enrolled in a university, graduate school, vocational school, or technical college and are scheduled to graduate on or after March 2025. Working adults and those under high school age are not eligible. We're gonna zoom in on this one. Working adults are not eligible. Students only. Students only. Now, obviously, I'm gonna zoom back out a little bit here. Obviously, we don't know for a fact that there aren't any other managers that are full-time employees, but the fact that this is an official job listing for them, that they are hiring students at minimum wage and disqualifying adults for exactly the kind of thing that is pivotal for management to be doing, is fucking wild. It is insane. I can't, and this is like, I'm speechless. It is so fucking stupid and so incompetent. It's, man. The rabbit hole gets deeper and uglier. I expect that we are going to get a lot more news regarding Selene and /Doki in the future. I'm sure that lawsuits are coming, and God knows if there's going to be a string of people leaving Nijisanji over this. It's gonna be a shit show, and I'm trying to keep up to date as much as I can. So with that said, we're going from one corporate dystopia to another, and we are getting into Final Fantasy VII again.